Welcome to OAA Now, your home for Oakland Activities Association news and information. Here's your host, Sammy Taramina.
Welcome to OAA Now. I'm Sammy Taramina, blogger of the Dragon's Den, blog of Inside the OAA, and one of the hosts of Between Terminas on Orion Neighborhood Television. I'd like to welcome our friends watching on Oxford Community Television and also those watching on YouTube. Today we got Farmington football video coordinator Sean Cotter here in studio. We got three interesting topics. Sean, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Sam.
We got three interesting topics to talk about today. Of course, we got your thoughts on Farmington's football season this year, your expectation of them. Also, two new head coaches at Avondale and Pontiac. Of course, Ed Kuche takes over at Auburn Hills, Avondale, and John Thompson at Pontiac. And also, out of OA, and of course, this has been a huge story since Friday, and it's Chris Farr. Of course, you know, Chris Farr, the coach at Waterford Mott, he got hit with a 2-game suspension and a 2-year playoff ban. So we'll get your thoughts on that. Speaking of that, let's go to the main story. Of course, as I mentioned, it's the Chris Farr story at Waterford Mott. Of course, he got hit with a 2-game suspension and a 2-year playoff ban, punishment that was handed out in June. He said he appealed the suspension. The MHA agreed to hear the case, but it was denied last Friday. He said he will appeal the suspension most likely in the state courts. So what's your thoughts about this?
Well, my thoughts about it is he knew what he was doing, and he's guilty, you know, because they had evidence back in May where they were having, I think it was 7-on-7 on midday on a Sunday afternoon at 5 o'clock. And he tried to get kids from different schools to go there. He got a few Pontiac kids, a few Avondale kids, and I think a few West Bloomfield kids were there too.
When you look at the suspension of Farr, of course, a lot of people have said that Farr's had this a lot coming to him. Of course, there's been a lot of people at Waterford Kettering that's complained about him, about what he's doing over at Mott, and he's been doing this a long time. What's your thoughts about that?
Well, my thoughts about it is he's a cheater. You know, I mean, he thought he could get away with it, and it sounds like he did not.
I mean, you look at Nick Linesman, of course, he was a freshman coach at Waterford Mott. He also got hit with a 2-year playoff ban as well. When you look at the situation, do you think Linesman is at blame or Farr was blame at this, or both, you think?
In my opinion, both were at blame at it. I heard he owned some properties and all that, and kids were living in those properties, so he had a lot to do with it too. So he's just as guilty as Farr. When
you look at a possibility, I mean, do you think ever at all the MHA should have a death penalty like they do in college athletics?
Yes, but a lot of times they're too lenient on things like with this transferring. It's just getting way out of hand.
But when you look at the issue here, you can go more in depth if you want to. You look at the impact. Of course, Farr's first game, he'll be suspended, will be August the 25th against Macomb L'Anse Creuse North. But when you look at the situation now with Waterford Mott now, knowing that this could be a distraction, of course, you know Farr avoided media day and all that. So do you think that this is going to be a huge distraction for Waterford Mott this upcoming year?
It's really hard to say, but they do have some talent, and Keith Fields and all that, and he should do well there. It depends on their line.
But when you look at Waterford Mott, this is a team that, you know, relied a lot on transfers. They made the playoffs last 2 years. They're 12-6 their last 2 years. You think about this heading in. This is a team that really, when you're in a division with Wall Lake Western, Wall Lake Central, Wall Lake Northern, you know, those three schools are pretty much going to be very difficult. And then when they leave the KLA, those three schools are coming with them. So what is your intake on the situation that, let's say if Waterford Mott doesn't make the playoffs, this 2-year playoff ban, it continues on. So this could be more years if Waterford Mott doesn't make the playoffs.
That is correct.
I mean, when you look at the situation here with Waterford Mott football, Do you think they're a cheating program?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then you look at the allegations here surrounding it. Of course, Waterford Schools sent a statement. Of course, their athletic director, I know Allison Sartorius very well. She said that it was a long suspension and all that. A lot of people I know around the area think that this was not handled properly. What do you think about that?
I agree with that. I think he got a slap on the wrist, only 2 games this year. I mean, so he'll be able to coach the last 7 games, and that just don't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. But when you look at Waterford Mott, this is and then of course the main thing that Farr said he will appeal is suspension. Of course, he did have his case taken to the MHSAA, and they denied his appeal. He said he would appeal a suspension, but where do you think he'll appeal it to?
I'm not really sure, Sam. I don't know if it's the MHSA or if it's going to go to court. I don't really know.
Well, if it goes to this court, what do you think it would be? Oakland County or Ingham County?
Probably Ingham County, because the MHSA is the one that's involved, not the school district.
But when you look at the situation here with linesman getting kicked out, getting fired from his job, do you think Farr should have got fired from his job at Waterford Mott?
Absolutely.
Why?
Because he did something he shouldn't have. He broke the rules.
Yeah, but you look at the situation what Farr's done. I mean, do you think in your mind that there's other coaches that are doing this issue right now?
Absolutely. I can't say who I know offhand, but it's going around, but they just haven't been caught yet.
But when you look at the situation, though, in this case here, Nick McKay, he did a magnificent job at exposing this story. When you got the story from McCabe, what were your first initial thoughts?
Well, I thought, Nick McCabe was right on it, I mean, he was there to cover it and all that.
But go more into detail what you thought personally.
Well, I thought that Farr should be suspended for 3 or 4 years.
Of course, the original playoff ban said that, the original ban would be he and his staff would have been suspended for 4 years.
That's what it should have been. It's like, I think he's getting a slap on the wrist, so he's like getting away with it in quite a way.
So you think when you look at the situation now surrounding the whole situation at Waterford Mott, do you think Waterford School District did a good job here in investigating a story? I think it could have gone a little bit more deeper.
They should have gone a lot more deeper. It's a mess. I mean, they didn't really do anything. It's the MHSA that did all the work.
But when you look at the situation, though, I don't know. Do you think there was evidence he might have did this elsewhere, like at Seaholm or anywhere?
Possibly, but it's hard to say. He didn't get caught there, so he got caught at Mott.
But when you look at the team Waterford Mott has this upcoming season, of course, as we mentioned about Keith Fields and his stats, he came over from Lake Orion. And when you look at Mott's schedule, having to play Walled Lake Western, you got to play Walled Lake Central, Walled Lake Northern. What do you think? Do you think Mott's a playoff team this year?
Maybe, maybe not. They also have to play Novi, who's not bad.
Of course, we all know Novi upset West Bloomfield from the playoffs a year ago, and Novi's got a lot back.
They do, and they were leading Catholic Central at halftime.
But when you look at the situation here with Novi, I mean, with Waterford Mott having to play Novi, of course, Novi's been known for their athletes and their talent. Do you think that they're going to give Waterford Mott a lot of problems?
I think they might beat them.
So do you think Waterford Mott goes 5-4?
5-4, 6-3.
But when you look at the season to close out, I mean, do you think that the suspension of Farr was too much or too lenient?
Oh, way too lenient. He only got 2 games. That's like slapping someone on the wrist.
Yeah, but when you look at too lenient, what do you think should have been? A 4-year ban?
Yes.
Well, but why do you think the MHA decided to take this more lenient route?
I'm not sure why they do it, but they're pretty lenient on the transfer transferring and all that, because a lot of those aren't legit transfers. You know that as well as I do.
But when you look at it here, do you think that the MHA needs to do more?
Well, they need to do a lot more.
Especially when you have to crack down on transfers and all that.
Right, but I don't see it getting any better.
Why is that?
Well, because they're not really doing anything. They figured with when the schools say transfers and all that, they don't investigate. They just figured it's legit, then they leave it alone.
So you think there's been a couple of those players coming into different schools that have had that went to schools, that went to schools basically just for athletic reasons, think they're trying to fool the system?
Oh, big time.
Do you think the state of Michigan should step in on this?
Yes, but I don't know if they will or not.
But when you look at but in Farr's case, of course, this is a case of nearly a borderline SMU. What SMU did in college football, of course, they did was they paid players, and you can't do that.
No.
Here, Farr was bringing in kids to go to taking advantage of the schools of choice program that these kids have, and hoping to make them very successful and go into big time college football. But when you look at the situation with this case here, what indications do kids and parents have in going to these type of big schools, whereas you have your original school district that basically, that you're basically in, and you want to, and you can do wonders for playing for them instead of having to go form a super mega conference. What's your thoughts?
What was that again?
Like a formation, do you think that kids and parents should have the right to go to a different school, or do you think that they should stay at their original school, get a good education, and try to build that football program up? What's your thoughts?
Well, I think they should stay in the district they're in because they grew up in that community. But as we know, it all comes down to stats.
Mm-hmm. And it came down to stats when looking at this situation. When you look at Farr's pedigree, of course, we mentioned he was at Waterford. He's at Waterford Mott right now. Of course, he coached at Seaholm. What are your thoughts initially? What Farr's going to do? What's your thoughts initially? What Farr should do?
Well, he should try to put the distractions aside and just focus on the season. That's past now, and you can't let it bother you. It's done, it's over. So he's got the season to worry about.
Yeah, but you think he's going to do that?
Probably not. He's probably going to try to appeal it so he does it so he can get away with it.
Yeah, but would you think that Farr is a borderline cheater for what he's done?
Well, he is a cheater.
But
everybody I talked to said he's a cheater.
Mm-hmm. Like your sources, what have your sources said about Farr?
That he's a cheater, that he should have been fired a long time ago.
And what else?
That's all I know.
So we'll see what happens. We'll keep an eye on the situation. Of course, this court case is not over.
Oh, it's far from over.
It's far from over. Of course,
this could go on for quite a while, too.
This might, and here's why it might. Because this could be a case where if Waterford Mott doesn't make the playoffs this year, that 2-year playoff ban's still in effect.
Correct.
And if they do make the playoffs, that suspension gets cut. So if in Farr's best case, and I think Waterford School District did this, was maybe put a zero tolerance policy on Farr because, he's on thin ice right now.
Yes, he is.
And basically, with what happened is if you put him on a zero tolerance policy like what Indiana did with Bobby Knight before he got fired at Indiana, do you think he should get a zero tolerance policy?
Oh, absolutely. Then I don't know if he'll stop or not, or he'll try to sneak around it too. Who knows?
Well, we'll see what happens. We'll keep an eye on the situation as it goes with the Chris Farr situation. Okay, now when we come back, we're going to talk about the Farmington football season. Of course, we got Mr. Cotter here in attendance here on OAA Now.
We own a Habitat home.
I love working on my Habitat home.
Soy dueño de una casa de Habitat.
My neighbor is a Habitat homeowner.
Being a Habitat homeowner has changed our lives.
My mortgage payment for Habitat is less than what I pay for rent.
Habitat for Humanity of Oakland County currently has homes available with mortgage payments lower than most rent payments. If you or someone you know needs decent and affordable housing, call 248-338-1843 or visit our website at habitatoakland.org.
Welcome back to OAA Now. I'm Sammy Termin here. We got Sean Cotter here, works at Farmington as their video coordinator. Of course, what do you do for Farmington football?
I tape all the varsity games, and I tape the freshman and JV games. I won't be taping some of the freshman and JV games. In the first week, I won't be taping any of them because I got to work.
Right, and you just picked up a job at Ford Motor Company.
Yes, temporary part-time, going really well, really happy about it, and I'm going to work on getting in full-time, and so far things look promising.
Let's look at the upcoming season for the Farmington Falcons. Of course, you had an all right year last year. You made the playoffs. Of course, you had some big wins. You beat Oak Park. You beat Adams, but you had some heartbreaking losses in the
We sure did.
process. You lost one to North Farmington.
That was a killer.
And then you lost one to Orion.
Yes.
And then you lost in the playoffs
and
to
we lost to Harrison by
you
one.
lost to Harrison by 1 point.
Both extra points.
And then you lost, and then of course you lost in the playoffs last year to Livonia Franklin, 33-30.
Yes.
Which one of those playoff losses tend to bother you? Which one of those losses bothered you last year?
Probably the North Farmington game, because if we would have won that game, we would have had Franklin at home. Since we had a 2-touchdown lead and we just fell apart, it was not good.
Well, describe to our viewers here about what the Farmington Cup means to Farmington.
Oh, it means a lot, when you have rivals North Farmington and Harrison battling out. We easily could have won the Cup. We lost to North by 5. We led by 14 in the fourth quarter and just fell apart, gave it away. Then we lost to Harrison by 1, and we missed both extra points. So we easily should have won both games, but we didn't.
But when you look at the Farmington Cup, a lot of people compare that to the Double O Trophy between Orion and Oxford. How do you feel about having to give away that Farmington Cup? Is it terrible?
It's very terrible. I mean, we should have had it last year. Like I said, both games we lost, we should have won.
But when you look at the games that you lost last year, of course, what about the other losses that you had? Of course, you lost to Orion. What about Harrison? Let's go to Harrison first. I mean, like you said yourself, you've had some history with Farmington Hills Harrison. Of course, we know Harrison's going to close in about
very sad,
in 3 years. So, what's your thoughts about last season's loss to Harrison?
Very heartbreaking. We missed, like I said, we missed both extra points. If we make both of them, we beat them, and we would have had Franklin at home instead of on the road.
But when you look at Harrison closing, what's your thoughts on Harrison closing?
Oh, they're good. They're going to want to win for legendary coach John Harrington, class guy, great guy, and they want him. They want to send him out, and they want him to break Al Fracasa's record. And I think it's very possible because his team's going to be solid this year. Mm-hmm. I could see Harrison going 7-2.
Yeah, it's a possibility. They do open up with these Kentwood
That'll be
to open up the year. Yeah, it's at Ann Arbor, of course. Let's look at your big wins from a year ago. Of course, Oak Park, you won that one. How did it feel? How did it feel beating the Knights last year?
Oh, it felt great and all that, but we won by 1. But we let a couple opportunities in that game, so we could have won by more, but we got the win.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, Adams. Of course, then we'll get back to your game with Orion and also Livonia Franklin. Let's look at Adams. This was another one of your big wins last year, knocking them off.
Yeah,
how did you feel about beating Adams, pulling that? That was a big upset to a lot of people.
Yeah, well, we scored with 16 seconds left, and Adams drove down to our 16, on the last play of the game, and they threw an incomplete pass. We got to go there this year, and I think Adams is a playoff.
But you won at Adams last year.
Yes, we did.
So now you got to go back to Adams. So how do you feel having to go back to Adams?
They're going to be in a foul mood.
Of course, Adams had a really rough year a year ago. Of course, they lost to North Farmington 7-0.
Yeah, I was shocked about that. But North, they were very competitive, and they, in my opinion, they should have been a playoff team. They were not far away from being if they would have beaten Seahome, they would have been in.
Mm-hmm. Of course, let's go to two more of your heartbreaking losses, Orion and Livonia Franklin. First, for the Orion game, that was heartbreaking, 17-14 a year ago.
Was. And, we had the ball inside the half-yard line, couldn't punch it in.
Do you think that's a credit to the Dragons' defense?
Absolutely. Lake Orion had nothing to lose, and they were trying to knock us out of the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. But you did get in. You did get in at 5-4.
And when the way the draw went, I thought we had a good chance to do some damage, but Franklin had other ideas.
But when you look at that Livonia Franklin game, you were there personally.
I was.
And they just spread you out and just basically beat you with their athletes. Why did they do that?
Plus, they had some big plays. Their quarterback was outstanding, very quick, and they had a couple good backs. They only threw 2 or 3 passes the whole game, and we were able to score on them, and Kyle Brunson got hurt in the first quarter, didn't return. That was a huge loss for us.
But when you look at that game, of course, Livonia Franklin would eventually go to the state semifinal for losing to, I believe it was Detroit Martin Luther King, yes. But when you look at Livonia Franklin's playoff run last year, what do you think? Livonia Franklin's going to be very good this year.
Yeah, they got quite a few starters coming back. They did lose their quarterback. They have their running back coming back. They had a sophomore running back last year that I really liked, but he got hurt, so he didn't even play in the playoffs. And they have their JV team last year went undefeated, and their freshman team went 7-2. So they're going to be good for the next 2 or 3 years. I think they'll be even better this year, depending on their quarterback. That'll determine where they go.
Mm-hmm. And now let's look at, of course, you got this year's Farmington Falcons team this year. Of course, I know you've had a lot of conversation with John Bechtel, their head coach there. And what is your expectation heading into the year with Farmington football?
We're going to be inexperienced. We only have 3 starters back, 2 on offense, 1 on defense. And our league is loaded. Oak Park's going to be very good. Harrison, Groves, and Adams, I think, are going to be very good. And North Farmington and Seahome should be competitive.
But let's look at this league more into depth. Of course, I'm going to mention you some impact players, what you think about them, of course. Let's go to Oak Park first. Of course, you have them. They got a very good quarterback in Dwan Mathis coming in. What's your thoughts about Dwan Mathis coming in for Oak Park?
I haven't seen him play, but I heard he's pretty darn good.
He's looking at his days at Belleville, of course.
They made the playoffs last year, but I don't think they played the competition that we do, so I don't know.
Are you saying Oak Park really? Or you talking about Belleville?
Belleville.
Yeah. But I thought you were saying about Oak Park. I said, man, he'd be crazy because Oak Park always plays a vicious Week 1 schedule.
Yeah, they play Detroit.
They got Detroit Cass Tech this year to start off.
That's going to be a good game.
That'll be a really good game because Oak Park this year they got a freshman defensive lineman I've been looking at. I like a lot. I think his name's Justin Rogers.
Yeah, and he signed it. He's already committed to D1. I heard.
Yep, and then of course Jeraymond Hall's going to Michigan, which is. Oak Park could be a very dangerous team this year.
They might even be a contender if things fall into place. And they have Clarkston at home. They might beat them this year.
But when you look at,
and they had a good JV team coming up from last year too.
Mm-hmm. And then you look at your schedule. You open up with Wall Lake Western.
Ouch.
And then of course, Week 2 is Harrison.
Ouch.
And Week 3 is Oak Park.
Ouch.
How is that? How in the blue world? That's going to be murder's row.
It will be. We're going to have our work cut out for us. We have to win 1, maybe 2 of those games to have any chance at Week 10. But there's very possible we could be 0-3. And Wall Lake Western, they'll probably be big up front like they were last year. They have an outstanding receiver and Cody White.
Yep, going to Michigan State.
And they have a pretty good quarterback coming in from Brother Rice, a transfer. I saw him play last year. Couldn't really tell how good he was.
But when you look at your first game with Walled Lake Western, it's going to be very. Why are you playing him in the big house?
I don't know. Coach Bechtel, I guess, was looking for a game, and I guess Walled Lake West, him and Zadebski came to an agreement or something.
I mean, when you look at the situation here in this game with you guys going up against Walled Lake Western, this is going to be so difficult.
It will
because Western's a team that is a serious contender in D2.
I agree.
It depends where they're put. If in the playoffs, if they go west, they're gonna have to deal with Lowell. They beat Lowell last year.
Yep, they did.
And then if they go east, then they're probably gonna have to deal with Oak Park. I mean, they can go any way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it depends on where. Usually, the last few years they've been sent out west, and they were in D1 in 2013.
Do you think they're gonna be a D2 team this year?
I believe so.
Of course, when you look at the and then of course, let's look at your game with Harrison. It's going to be, I think it's at home for you guys.
No, we're
at Harrison.
We're at Harrison. We've been home the last 2 years with them.
What's your thoughts having to go out there at Harrison?
Well, they're going to be closing in 3 years, so they're going to want to get John Harrington the most wins ever in state history.
And then, of course, you host Oak Park.
We're at Oak Park.
Oh, you're at Oak Park in Night Valley.
Yeah.
Very difficult game
we
to
haven't
start
won
off.
there, but the last 5 years we've played them. Ever since Greg Carter's taken over there, every game's been real close. And the playoff game when we lost 38-13 in 2014, we were up 13-6 at halftime and just fell apart in the second half.
But when you look at do you think what Carter's done at Oak Park has been, ever since he came over there, what do you think about Carter, what he's done over there at Oak Park?
Well, he's done a lot of great things and all that. He's done a lot. Well, they're more disciplined now. And, basketball, they've hired their 8th coach in 9 years.
Yeah, I know. They just named another one. I know that's going to be that's very interesting because Carter's done a magnificent job, not only as a head coach, but also an athletic director.
Yes, he has.
But let's talk about these other teams you got to deal with. Groves first, of course. This is a team last year that was undefeated, upset Harrison in the playoffs, lost against a very good Walled Lake Western team. What's your thoughts on Brandon Flaherty's team this year?
I think they're going to be pretty good, and I was at the Groves Walled Lake Western game, and Groves hung tough with them. It's just Groves didn't have the size to match up with them. They were in the game until the fourth quarter, so they were very competitive with them. If they would have had some size, they would have beaten them.
But when you look at Groves' team this year, there's a little thing called schedule. Of course, their schedule is absolutely brutal. You got to play. They close out the year with Saline.
Ouch.
They got to play West Bloomfield.
First game,
and that's going to be very difficult. And then, of course, you still got to play Oak Park, Adams, Harrison.
Their schedules: West Bloomfield, Oak Park, and
Southfield. That's going to be difficult. What's your thoughts about Groves' schedule?
Rough, but they have a lot of starters coming back this year. Their quarterback's back, their running back's back. Their tight end, Drew Shekel, who's a pretty good basketball player, is back. He's the nephew of Scott Shekel.
Mm-hmm. But when you look at Groves' schedule, do you think Groves is a playoff team this year?
Possibly.
Why?
Because they have a lot of starters coming back. And last year, I think them beating Pioneer last game of the year gave them confidence in playing Harrison.
Well, when you look at that game with Harrison, of course, that game was nip and tuck. Of course, Harrison had, of course, Khalid Kareem, and then of course, they have another Notre Dame bound player, in Oiki Owufu.
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce his name.
And you look at this, and you look at Groves' team. This is going to be a very interesting team to keep an eye on this year. But you said that this team could be a playoff team.
Yeah,
I think when I look at the schedule, it gives me otherwise.
Right, if they got a chance. If they go 5-4, Sam, they should make the playoffs with their schedule because I see them beating North Farmington and Seaholm. They have to win those 2 games.
Win those 2 games, but where do you think they can win?
They might beat us.
Well, besides you. I mean, that's 3 wins right there.
Yeah, and maybe,
who do you think they can beat?
have a chance against West Bloomfield, definitely. They trying to think. That's a tough question.
I mean, where do you think Groves? If Groves goes 5-4, do you think they have a chance against Adams?
Yes, because it's at home.
Right, but
but Adams, I think will be better than last year because the last 2 years have not been good.
Right, and they got a returning quarterback in Kyle Wood.
And they had an outstanding freshman team last year. They were pretty big.
Right, and then, of course, they have a very good Adams is not a bad team. I think Tony Petrino's going to have a very good team this year coming up.
I agree.
And then, of course, let's talk about Seaholm. This is a team, of course, Jim DeWald, always done a magnificent job with the Maples. He's managed to turn that team around the last few years, but you're going to be going up against Seaholm this year. What's your thoughts on the Maples program?
I'll tell you what, last year they were 3-6, but they were darn competitive. They had us beat with 2 minutes left. We had to pull it out. They had Oak Park beat, lost on the final play of the game. They should have won that game.
But when you look at Seaholm, when you look at it here, of course, they just took a big hit with Ed Kuche. We'll talk about Kuche in the next segment. But you look at what Jim DeWalls did. The thing that's bothered me with Seaholm has always been their defense. I mean, they struggle a lot. But when you look at the Maples team this year, what's your expectation of Seaholm?
I think they'll be very competitive. Like I said, they should have beaten us in Oak Park, and we were very fortunate to win that game in Oak Park, beat them on the last play of the game. So Seaholm should have won those 2 games.
And then, of course, we look at what did the Maples do? What did the Maples do to you guys in that game? Was it a veer option attack? Triple option.
Yeah, their running back ran the ball pretty good. They had a nice quarterback, Leigh Murray.
Mm-hmm. I think he's back this year, Leigh Murray.
I'm not sure if he is or not.
I don't know if he is.
I'll have to look.
Yeah, I'll have to look at my notes when I get that.
And Seaholm plays Rice first game.
What's your thoughts about that game?
Well, Rice should be much improved this year. They have 15 starters coming back.
Right.
And
they did lose their quarterback. He transferred out.
Yeah, to Wall Lake Western, yeah.
Right. And speaking of transfers, of course, you guys just lost your quarterback. It's Joe McGovern, I believe.
J.D. McGovern.
J.D. McGovern.
Great kid.
He transferred over to Saline.
His parents moved to Saline. I know his mom and dad real well.
Of course, now you look at the situation now with your quarterback situation. You've got 2 quarterbacks in the freshman JV level who have quarterback experience. What's your thoughts on the quarterback situation for Bechtel this year?
It's going to be interesting. We had a move in from Plymouth Salem. He might be our starter this year.
Well, who is this moving starter?
I think his last name is Ayers. Don't know his first name. He's a senior.
So you had but when you look at the difference from Plymouth Salem and Farmington, really, Salem's had some long years, rough years. Of course,
they have.
You look at, and of course,
he wasn't going to start there. It's going to be Dan Young's kid, Dan Young's just was hired as the girls' coach at Plymouth Salem, so he's going to be Salem's starter this year.
But when you look at the situation here and with Farmington, having to go in and playing Wall Lake Western, a very good team early in your schedule. How does that make you guys feel having to play them first?
Well, I don't have control over the schedule. We just play what's dealt to us, and we do the best we can.
But when you look at the schedule, though, as I mentioned, your schedule is brutal. A lot of people. There's been some people I've talked around the area. Look at Farmington could be a possibly 0-9 team this year.
Yeah.
What do you say to those critics about Farmington football possibly being 0-9?
Well, we can't worry about it. We just got to focus on what we need to do. We'll have some athletes, but like I said, we'll be inexperienced, so we might be down for a year or 2. But kids got to step up, It's their chance to do something.
Do you see Farmington possibly being down in the blue by next season?
It's hard to say what happens after this year because usually they go 2-year realignment.
But it's a 1-year thing this year.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a 1-year thing this year.
Yeah, because I didn't know that, but it's possible if we don't do well because we were in the white in 2013, moved to the blue in 2014.
You ransacked the blue that year.
Except for Groves.
But when you look at what's the difference from playing in the blue to playing in the white?
In the white, you got great athletes. You got some Division I kids, and there's a lot of parity in the white. And even the weakest team in the white would do very well in the blue, and that's not a joke.
And then, of course, you look at the red this year. That's a kiss of death this year.
I think the red's great this year because Southfield and Clarkston, in my opinion, are the favorites. Then West Bloomfield, Lake Orion, Athens, Stony Creek, and Oxford should battle it out. So they'll just beat each other up. So any of those teams can beat anybody.
Mm-hmm. When you look at the situation in the red division, a lot of people say Southfield, they have a history playing level of their competition. Just asked Berkeley about that last year because Berkeley beat both Southfield Lathrop and Southfield a year ago. Now they're merged. What do you see Tim Conley's team this year as?
They should be pretty good. They might even give Cass Tech a game. You were telling me about that.
Do you think if Southfield played Detroit Cass Tech, do you think the Warriors can beat them?
Very possible.
Why?
Well, Southfield has the athletes to match up with them. Southfield's always had speed. At times, they just can't put it together.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you look at Clarkston. A lot of people have said about the Wolves this year. I mean, they've been in the playoffs 12 straight years, but they open up at Lapeer. What's your thoughts about that game?
I think that game could go either way, and it's possible that they meet again in the Division I state playoffs. Very possible.
Then, of course, you got Orion, Chippewa Valley.
Oh, that's going to be a heck of a game, and I hope Orion can get them this time after two tough losses, two games that could have went either way.
What's your thoughts of Warren Mott and Troy Athens?
I think that game's a toss-up. I think it's going to be a shootout at Red Hawk Stadium. I see Athens winning in a close one, high-scoring game.
But when you look at Troy Athens' team, though, the defense was really improved a year ago under Josh Hapner.
Yeah, their defense was much better.
Warren Mott's got a pretty good offense, led, of course, by their quarterback, Mike Pond. And then of course, you got Stony Creek, Bloomfield Hills. That'll be a heck of a game there.
Yeah, Stoney's got to win that.
They got to win that one. And then, of course, you got there's some other games here that could be very much impactful. Oxford Romeo. What's your thoughts about that one?
I think Oxford has a chance because when Orion went in there defending Division I champions, they got blown away. I could see Oxford beating Romeo because Romeo lost a lot from last year. I think they have 7 starters back.
But do you think that Oxford can do the same thing to Romeo like they did to Orion by blowing out Romeo?
I think they can beat them, absolutely, because I heard Oxford. I've heard a lot of good things about Oxford. I think their defense has to improve.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be playing bud ball. They're just going to pound the rock.
Right. You do play Oxford this year, of course.
We got them right after you.
Yeah, you got them at home, too, which is going to be very interesting. You got them coming over to your place, which is going to be very, very interesting. I think that could be a possible homecoming opponent for you.
I think our homecoming game's against Groves in Week 8.
That's still not a good opponent. Being mean to you.
No, and last year we gave our homecoming game away against North.
We have not fared well in homecoming games, of course. 2012 with Orion.
Yeah, I remember that. We had an 18-0 lead, and we just fell apart. I mean, we were beat up.
Right.
And we were just worn out.
Right, and then 2013 you got to figure out who you guys played.
Bloomfield Hills.
Bloomfield Hills.
We were banged up, too.
Yep, you lost that game.
Oh, we lost badly. We didn't
and then
we got
14,
killed.
And then 14 you got them. And then 14.
14 we won. We had Hazel Park.
At Hazel Park, and then last year it was I think it was North Farmington. So you haven't had good luck at homecomings.
No, we haven't.
And that could be a bad omen. You know what I mean? And especially when you have Groves this year, that's going to be a bad omen.
Yeah, I think so, too. And Groves, I think, has got a chance to win the league. They have a chance doesn't mean they will.
But when you look at Groves' team, though, going forward, of course, as I mentioned, Flaherty's got I don't know if they could. I think they win 3 games. I really believe because the schedule I think is too tough for them heading into the year.
Yeah, that's true. And Flaherty Sons, their starter in the secondary.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens there. Okay, we'll keep it. Any final thoughts on Farmington's season?
And hopefully we can get revenge on North Farmington. They should be competitive this year. I believe they're starting quarterbacks back.
Well, when you look at Todd Schultz's team, of course, I think you saw the pictures on Todd Schultz's Twitter of their team holding up that Farmington Cup and their gym. That had to be heartbreaking and sick for you.
Oh, when I came home that night, I watched the film of that game. I couldn't believe what I saw. Even though we threw a long pass, so we were up by a touchdown, so we had the ball at their 30 and couldn't finish. Then we still had a chance to put the game away. We couldn't, so we had to punt. So North got the ball at our 45, and we had trouble stopping North's passing game. Their passing game just killed us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Wall Lake Western might expose us because they have an outstanding passing game.
Right. So we'll see what happens there in that game between Farmington and Wall Lake Western. Of course, it's odd because, you got, of course, Harrison playing against East Kentwood and also North Farmington. And, of course, North Farmington opens up with Wall Lake Northern.
Wall Lake Northern should be pretty good this year.
Mm-hmm. So it should be very interesting. We'll keep an eye on your season for Farmington this year. Okay, now when we come back, we're going to talk about 2 new head coaches in the OAA, of course, here on OAA Now.
Prescription drug abuse is a national epidemic. The new in way to obtain drugs is through parents' or grandparents' medicine chests. Removing prescriptions from your cabinet is the best way to keep drugs out of the hands of our young people. We've got to work together to protect our teens, our seniors, and our environment. Clean out your medicine cabinet today. Please participate in Operation Medicine Cabinet and drop off your unwanted or expired prescriptions at one of our law enforcement drop-off sites in Oakland County. We can't ignore this situation anymore.
Welcome back to OAA Now. I'm Sammy Tamina here. Of course, I got Sean Cotter from Farmington. Of course, he is also also works for the Farmington football team. Just a reminder to our viewers, of course, we're going to have our football preview show for the next 3 weeks. So you can follow me on Inside the OAA on the blog. So we'll cover volleyball projections, volleyball previews, and also once we get back into after the football previews, we're gonna get back into we'll get back in the thick of it, and I'll describe how the season is gonna go this season. So follow the blog very closely. It's at sammytaramina@blogspot.com. So let's talk about more football. Of course, we got two teams in the blue division. Of course, we'll go. Of course, they're at Avondale and Pontiac. Of course, let's go with Pontiac first. Pontiac named John Thompson their head coach. He succeeded Pete Scott. Of course, Pete Scott took over for John Lloyd last season. Of course, Thompson was a 2003 member of the All-Dream team at Detroit Crockett. He was the head coach at Detroit Central in 2015, team that went 6-3 a year ago. He played college football at Michigan. So, what is your thoughts about John Thompson being named at Pontiac?
Oh, I think that's a good coach. I think that's a good choice. I saw Detroit Central in their scrimmage with Oak Park, and they looked pretty good, Detroit Central.
But for Thompson's case, why leave to take a team over from a team that's 2-33 since 2011? That's when Coach Brad Zuby left to go to Stony Creek, and the last time Pontiac made the playoffs. This is their 4th coach in 5 years. Why take a job like Pontiac?
Well, maybe he thinks that he can turn it around with the way he coaches and all that. Or maybe he just wants a challenge.
I mean, when you look at Pontiac football, of course, you've seen it. You played against Pontiac. You know what I mean? Like the struggles that they've gone through.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you think that he's willing to take this opportunity?
Well, because Pontiac, they always have athletes. It's just a lot of your Pontiac athletes end up at West Bloomfield or St. Mary's.
But when you look at the situation here, this is a school district's had numerous financial problems.
Big time.
Numerous, of course, transportation troubles, with this team. Of course, they play their varsity games at historic Wisner Stadium, but they do practice at Pontiac High, some football fields. So, do you think Thompson's gonna have some trouble trying to maybe field a competitive product?
Yeah, I think it depends on depth's probably an issue too for Pontiac.
Now, when you look at what Thompson brings, of course, he said that he wanted to change the culture at Pontiac. It's not like Rome was built overnight.
Right.
So, how many games do you think you see Pontiac winning this year?
Maybe 2, 3 at the most.
Of course, they do open up the year with Detroit Redford coming up. They do open up, and then they got a tough schedule. They still got to play Detroit Country Day in that stretch. But when you look at what Thompson has, he's going to have some players that, are willing to work hard, willing to be hungry, willing to coach, be ready to be coached. Of course, how do you think that Thompson's success is going to change the culture when Pete Scott and John Lloyd? Of course, we bless John Lloyd, you know what I mean?
Yeah, very sad what happened to
him. And how do you think that Thompson's going to coach from Pete Scott and also John Lloyd?
I don't know his coaching style and all that. I've never met him and all that, so I don't really know.
So you think they'll only win 2 games?
Yeah, because they have only won 2 games in the last 5 years. When Brad Zuby was there, they were very competitive.
Well, the difference was, of course, Zuby went to Stony Creek.
Yes.
And then, of course, did a nice job there. Of course, now Stony Creek, as Bob Lansing now is their coach, since he left to go to Brandon.
For many years.
Yeah, and of course, one thing for certain is I like what Lansing did with Stony Creek's football uniforms at Media Day. He put the names of the players' last names in the back. He actually likes that.
And he's not a stranger to Lake Orion and Clarkston.
Oh no. I mean,
so he knows Kurt Richardson and Chris Bell extremely well. He's had some good battles with them over the years.
So this would be very interesting, especially with Stony Creek. But with John Thompson at Pontiac now, of course, you look at I want to get your thoughts before we go to our next head coach of Troy, Rochester, and Bloomfield Hills in the Blue Division. High enrollments in the low division. What's your thoughts?
Well, Troy struggled really bad in the red, so they had to go down to the blue. And I see Troy winning maybe 4 games this year. They should be improved.
Even with the low numbers and the depth problems they got over there.
Yes, because I see Berkeley being the favorite. And they can beat Pontiac. They can beat Avondale.
What about Bloomfield Hills?
They can beat Bloomfield.
What about Bloomfield Hills? What's your thoughts about them?
Hopefully they win a few more games in the red because they got beat up last year.
Bloomfield Hills is in the blue now. They're not in the red.
And I know that. They should do better. They should fare better in the blue.
And then Hazel Park.
Well, they can only go up.
Well, when you look at Hazel Park they're 1-26 in their last 27 games.
Because in 2010 they were pretty good.
That was the last time they made the playoffs. Was 2010, and we'll see what happens with Hazel Park going forward. I know a couple guys on that team. Hazel Park has been talking that they might be good this year.
Yeah, that's what you were saying on your last blog.
They got a very tricky game with Warren Fitzgerald week 1.
Oh, that's a rivalry game, 9 mile rivalry.
And of course we know Hazel Park's got to be careful on press clippings. They got to be very careful. Let's go to our last new head coach, of course. Besides Lansing at Stony Creek, Thompson at Pontiac, Ed Kuche. Of course, this is a very interesting story with him. Of course, Kuche was formerly an assistant at Birmingham Seaholm.
He was their head JV coach last year.
Yep, he head JV coach last year. He's a current assistant track coach at Avondale, and of course, he takes over a program that's had their 3rd coach in 7 months. And Of course, Ed Kuche takes over the team for Lemanzer Williams. Of course, Lemanzer Williams was originally named the head coach of the Yellow Jackets.
Came from Ypsilanti.
Came from Ypsilanti. Of course, he had a very successful career at Ypsilanti. He finished 4-5, but shared the Southeastern Conference second division with Chelsea. And I guess what happened was he had some issues with his original job as the dean at Detroit Jalen Rose Academy, and I guess he couldn't coach the team. And now you bring in Ed Kuche, of course, well known around the OAA, 14 years at Waterford Mott. I mean, what's your thoughts about? He worked under Deutsch, and of course, he worked under Jim DeWalt. So, what's your thoughts about Ed Kuche and the job he has to deal with?
I think that's a good hire for Avondale because Ed's been around and all that, and Ed's going to run the triple option. And Avondale, has athletes, but defense has been a problem from the last couple of years.
Last year, Avondale allowed 263 points. That's brutal.
That is too many.
Yes. I mean, even though last year you got a team in that division that was much worse, and that was Troy, who allowed 301 a year ago.
Yeah, but Troy played better competition, so it should benefit them this year.
But when you look at Avondale's record, they're 14-13 since 2012. Of course, what is your thoughts about what Kuche is going to do with this team?
Well, he's going to have to improve the defense and all that. His first game with New Boston Huron's going to be a challenge because they got blown out last year.
When you look at and especially when you have to go to New Boston, which is going to be very difficult for them because
they were a long drive too.
Yes, and they lost 49-6
at home.
And what do you say to your team after you kind of had to feel bad last year for Steve Deutsch having to go into that game, playing a tough schedule like that, and then you just getting your butt handed to you. I mean, like that. I mean, now Deutsch is no longer there. He resigned due to family reasons.
Where's he coaching at now? Do you know offhand?
No, I do not, but I know he left because of family reasons.
That's what I heard.
And what challenge does Kuche have this year?
I think he's got a big challenge, hopefully because Avondale's going to have athletes. They got to beat the Hazel Parks, the Ferndales, the Pontiacs. And hopefully he'll challenge Berkeley.
But when you look at Avondale's schedule, of course, they do, as you mentioned, open up with New Boston Huron. They do close out the year with Almont. And this is a football team that's been trying to find an identity. And do you think under Courtier that they can do that?
I think so, because like I said, he's had a lot of coaching experience, and he learned a lot from Jim DeWalt and Ken Schmidt when Ken Schmidt was at Waterford Mott.
Mm-hmm. But when you look at installing a triple option offense, how would that offense benefit Avondale?
Well, because Avondale's got athletes, they can spread the athletes out into space.
Mm-hmm.
But their defense is going to be the kicker if they're going to go anywhere, their defense has to get a lot better.
Do you think that when you look at it here with Avondale, do you think that the numbers have a factor why the defense struggles over there?
I'm not really sure. I saw him play a couple years ago, and we ran all over him.
But when you look at Avondale this upcoming season, this is a team that, how many games do you think they can win?
I'd say possibly 6.
I can see 6 as well. Avondale would be a playoff team in your mind. But when I look at the Blue this year, I think Avondale's got a great shot. Now I'm high on Royal Oak this year. I like the Ravens. I like what Ray McMahon's done with that team.
Yeah, they played us tough last year in the first game. They're definitely much improved from 2 years ago. They were just brutal 2 years ago.
Right, but they're much improved this year. I think Royal Oak's ready to take that next step.
I think so too.
They got 2 tough games to play to open up. They got Lakeview and Stockbridge to open up the year. That's going to be 2 tough games, especially the Stockbridge game. And then, of course, you got Berkeley, of course, as mentioned. They're going to be solid. Of course, they had that regional final run a year ago.
Yeah, then they're losing. Yeah.
They still got to address the running back issue.
And Nolan Givens, a big graduation loss for them.
Mm-hmm.
He was a heck of a player.
Yep, and then you look at the white division, you got to give an edge to...
I'd say Oak Park, Harrison, Adams, and Groves.
Well,
fight it out. Those are the top 4 teams, in my opinion.
I still think Groves is going to struggle. I still believe Groves is going to win 3 games.
Yeah, well, yeah, you might be right because
that schedule is absolutely brutal. They're going to be good,
right?
But the schedule is just the schedule. That's what it is. It's down to the schedule.
Yeah, the first 3 games, like I said, are murder.
And then of course you got the red division, which is going to be just absolutely brutal. You got Southfield, Clarkston, Orion, West Bloomfield, Athens, Oxford, Stony Creek. Isn't that a loving division?
Yeah, and I think, like I said, those 5, like I said, Athens, West Bloomfield, Orion, Stony Creek, and Oxford, they'll just beat each other up. And on any given day, any of those teams can win. I mean, every game's going to be close, in my opinion. No blowouts.
Right. Even Southfield, I think, is going to have some tough games this year, I believe. And then, of course, the tough games week 1. You know what I mean? What game intrigues you week 1?
Probably the Clarkston-Lapeer game.
Why?
Because I think that's going to be a heck of a game, and both teams should be pretty good, and they could meet again in the first round of the playoffs or second round, because I see them being in the same, because both teams should make the playoffs. And Clarkston's running back, Flugate, is that his Fugate?
Brandon Flugel. Yeah,
he looked good last year.
Like a Flugel, yep. Yeah, he looked good last year replacing Nolan Erickson, of course. It's going to be...
And Clarkston gave Romeo a game.
Well, until the second half.
Yeah.
But I think a game that should be interesting is going to be Orion Chippewa Valley. I think because Chippewa Valley lost a ton of players a year ago. Orion returned some key players. That's another game that's going to be interesting heading in. But I think the big one's Oak Park taking on Detroit Cass Tech. If Oak Park beats...
They got a shot.
If Oak Park beats Detroit Cass Tech first game, it sends a message that maybe the OAA is not as weak as they were last year. Maybe this is a strong conference.
Last year they were down a little bit.
Right.
Nobody got past the third round.
Right.
But I could see that changing this year. I could see Oak Park getting there, maybe Clarkson if they get the right draw.
Or maybe...
Or Southfield if they get the right draw.
Or maybe somebody new, you know what I mean?
Right.
Maybe... Because Orion and Adams are teams that are got to keep an eye on, along with Troy, Athens, West Bloomfield. Maybe even Groves.
Don't count Harrison out.
Yeah, don't count Harrison out either.
That's a mistake.
Don't count Harrison out. Don't count and then of course in the blue, you can't count out Avondale. You can't count out maybe even Hazel Park. You know what I mean? You can't count them out.
And Troy, I could see Troy maybe winning 5 games because
I don't know,
because they'll have a tough time with Country Day and
they play Wall Lake Central to open up the year. That's going to be tough.
Yes.
So we'll see what happens.
And I think Wall Lake Central will bounce back from last year because they lost a lot from their team in 2014.
Well, I agree with you. Well, Sean, thank you for coming on the show here.
Thank you for having me.
Yep. Okay, now as I mentioned, fans, we're gonna have our football previews for the next 3 weeks, and also you can follow us along on the blog at Inside the OAA at Sammy Termina at blogspot.com. So I will post on my Twitter page. I'm at Saginaw Bay for latest up to the minute updates surrounding the OAA, and also top 10 teams previewings for other sports such as volleyball and all that. So we'll see what happens. Okay, now I'm signing off here. Take care, everybody. Good luck this week. Happy football workout day, everybody. Good night. God bless.
OAA Now is produced at Orion Neighborhood Television, Lake Orion's community media outlet. To learn more about ONTV, visit our website at www.orionontv.org or call us at 248-393-1060.